Hi, welcome back to Breathing Lessons. I'm Susan Kay. Today we're going to talk about composting our past. If you've ever composted anything, you know that you take refuge, things that you don't eat, leftover like parts of vegetables or vegetables that have gone bad in the fridge. You also might take eggs, egg shells and those kinds of things, and you put them in a compost pile and you let them cook. And then as they decompose and they become food for other plants and other life forms. So today we're going to talk about how to do that with our past. First, I'd like to talk about the two gentlemen that showed up at the January 6th hearing on the 12th. Their names were Stephen Ayers and Jason Tatenhove. These two men have been involved in radicalized behavior. Mr. Ayers ended up at the January 6th insurrection. They showed a clip of him going into the Capitol building after it had been breached. He was there because he thought it was the right thing to do. He was trying to be loyal to who he thought the president was. And then Jason Tatenhove is a gentleman who used to be in the Oath Keepers, who got out before the January 6th insurrection, so he was not at the Capitol. Both of these gentlemen came to the hearing just to talk about how they got involved in this radicalized behavior, and both of them shared how they got out. I really noticed that Mr. Ayers in particular, just his facial expression was very remorseful. I felt like he regretted this terribly. I felt like he was embarrassed, and he was there to do the right thing, to talk about breaching the Capitol, to talk about the view from that side of things. And he also talked about being convicted and made to pay for his crime, and what it cost him for what he had done, which is it cost him his job, and I believe he said his place of residence. He lost his home. So I watched these two men, and I just want to say this about that. When people come out of lifestyles that are unhealthy, that maybe if even damaged our country or damaged whole groups of people, when they start coming out of that and they start waking up, we on the other side of that need to be careful that we take off our condemnation and we open our arms to them. It wasn't that many years ago, it was certainly within this lifetime, that I was of a persuasion regarding people of other ethnicities, of the LGBTQ community, and just anyone that didn't agree with me, that I was better than them, and that I was right and they were wrong. And I'm sure I did and said hurtful things. And I began to wake up, and I talked about that in my last tape, my last video, that I started deconstructing and recognizing something was wrong with the way I was living, my ideology, and I found my way out. These people are trying to find their way out of mindsets that are power and control and inequity, racism, white supremacy, those kinds of things. And when I'm talking about our past today, I'm not going to talk about specifically those types of things, but I'm just talking about when you come out of anything in your past that where you could have hurt other people or did hurt other people. It's important that you go through a process for your life to mean something later on. And the process today I'm calling composting. So what does that look like? Well, the first step, of course, is to see that you're in the wrong place and that you need a way out, and you begin to walk out of an old lifestyle and or a mindset that is not healthy, that is hurtful to other people. And you take responsibility for the fact that you've been there. That is not easy in and of itself. And especially like I talked about last week, when you end up being alone in the process. And most of us are alone in that process. When we leave a group, and most of the time this hurtful lifestyle is involved in a group. And we've been involved in group think. Maybe we were in a cult. Or maybe you were in a marriage where there was domestic violence or something of that nature. You have to take responsibility for the fact that you were there. I know for a number of years after I came out, I went through a time where I was extremely angry and my regret was massive. And I wanted to blame others for why I had been there. And so I blamed my mother, because my mother was instrumental in raising me in that. And I also blamed my husband, because I was married to a man I felt like I couldn't get out of the religion, not my marriage. But in the end, it came down to the fact that I had the right to leave. I did leave. I took responsibility. And after a few years of being very angry, very regretful, angry with myself, not just with others, and spent time blaming others, I had to come to a place of letting go of all that. And then I come to this new place of what have I learned. When things are composting, if you have a composter or you've got a place in the ground where you're composting, compost can become very hot. It's kind of a hot mess for a while. And that's part of the decomposing process, where things break down and vegetables, and then everything turns into compost. And a lot of times we add things to the compost to help the process of breaking it down. I don't have an analogy for that, except I think that in order to break down things in our lives, that I just found a spider on my wall. I hope I'm not too distracted. In order for us to break down the anger, the blame, all those kinds of things in our lives, I do think we need to add things to our lives to help us break those things down. My video might be one of those things to help you. Other videos, I went on and I watched a lady on YouTube a lot while I was deconstructing, and it wasn't about my religion, but it was about narcissism, which taught me a lot about my mother and what was going on there. And it helped me to break down the anger, the blame, all those kinds of things, and to recognize my mother for who she was. And then I also took it apart and looked at why she was the way she was, which helped me. So you can add things to your life while you're decomposing that helps you along the way and helps to take the heat out. You can't put super hot compost on your vegetables or your flower bed or whatever you're going to do, because it'll burn the roots. So you want the compost to kind of be less than hot when you put it on. And I think it's true of our lives. We cannot help others. We are not in a position yet to help others until we've composted to the place where we're no longer red hot. So forgiving ourselves and forgiving others and recognizing that people are just people, investing more in the idea of just humanity as in all its flawed basis. I don't think a humanity in and of itself, I don't think is flawed, but we become flawed within our humanity, and that we're all flawed, and It's just the way it is. The next step, I believe, and that was all step number one, recognize the error of where you are and take responsibility for it. And then the other subsets under that is to deal with regret, blame, and anger. Number two is, what have you learned? I have spent the last few years really delving into my mindset and why I believed what I believed. And I've written a book about it. I'm not ready to share that book with the world, and I don't think I'm even through writing it yet. I think I'm going to rewrite it. I have a habit of rewriting, but I don't think it's done yet. But the basis of it is there. The basics of it is there. And what I did was I found that there was an actual trail of belief from my, and this is me, where I came from the Garden of Eden through the Bible, that told me and showed me, and I've already done a lot of videos on this, so you can see it in my last videos, part of the trail of how I came to the belief of what I came to because of what I believed as foundational. A lot of times we have the very foundation of what we believe has to be deconstructed in order for us to come out of these things. Takes time. And that's the other thing. Give yourself time. I couldn't have done videos like this 10 years ago because I was still angry. I was still blaming. And I was not ready to help other people. I was not ready to give what I had away and fertilize other people because I was still red hot. And that's the way it was. I was angry. And then the last thing is, what can I give? This is part of what I'm giving. I'm giving in my job. I'm giving to children in the foster care system. I'm giving to the people who advocate for children in the foster care system. That's what I do. That's part of my giving. The other part of my giving, hopefully, will be a book. And then what I'm doing here is part of my giving. I'm trying to give out what I've learned, and hopefully it'll be like compost for those who are trying to grow something new in their lives. And I hope that these videos can nourish you and nurture you along the way and encourage you. It would be nice. I'd like to see some comments or have you respond to me in regards to what your composting process looks like. It may not look just like mine. Maybe you've had to go to jail. Maybe, and like this gentleman, this Stephen Ayers, I don't know if he'll end up in jail. It wasn't clear to me if he got off without jail time or if he actually is in jail. I wasn't sure about that. But he's paying a price for what he did, and I don't disagree with that. I think we do pay prices for what we do, but he's remorseful. And the other thing is, when you have been composted enough, then you'll find the kindness and the goodness in your heart to forgive others that are in the same sort of predicament that you were in when you were in it. Doesn't mean that we don't get angry with people for being what we might consider jerks. I still look around my community, and sometimes I'll react to things that I see going on or the way people are treating other people. I don't like that. But I've composted enough to know how to, for the most part, release other people from judgment and let them go about whatever they're doing until they bump their nose or fall down or get, apprehended or whatever it takes for them to come to a place where they can change their lives. But when people come to that place, let's be there for them. Let's be the compost pile. And let's say, hey, you can grow something new and I can help you. And that's kind of what my video is about today. We can be the factor in somebody else's life to help them grow something new and different in their lives. And I don't know about you, but I don't see there to be any other thing that we can do in life that's more important than that. So I've rambled. This has been a little bit convoluted, but I hope it's given you some things to think about. And I'll watch it, and if I don't like it, I'll redo it. And if you just heard me say that, it meant that I just let it go and let it be what it was. And sometimes that's what we have to do. We have to let go of our lives and let them be what they've been. And that's what this is about. I'll see you next on Breathing Lessons. This is Susan K.
Thanks for watching Susan K today. To find more episodes, subscribe on the button below and be watching for more. Learn how to breathe with Susan K.